Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What Are You Watching podcast. My guest today is a former TBS champion, the winner of the 2023 Women's Owen Cup, the best smile in AEW, and the babe with the power, Willow Nightingale. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I appreciate that very kind introduction.
Well, I mean, going through your accolades, you were just so awesome, and you just burst onto the scene in AEW with such an energy, and the crowd just kind of instantly was drawn to you. Can you tell me what it was like seeing people warm up to your character and your awesome skills?
So before I got to AEW, I wrestled on the independents for maybe about 6 or 7 years, something around that. And it's kind of just like what I had been doing, just on a bigger scale, because you start wrestling, nobody knows who you are. You are also learning in front of an audience. You're figuring out what works, what doesn't. And that's all for like a very small, intimate crowd. So when I got to AEW, like I already did obviously have wrestling experience. I already had experience gaining fans over, winning fans over. But there's also this like learning to wrestle for not really just the live audience, but like one, the live audience is way bigger, and two, there's so many people at home watching. So there is a little bit of a learning curve, even at like 6, 7 years into my career. And uh the scope of it just is really like awe-inducing. So I just kept trying to pull like anytime I felt like, oh my God, this is crazy, this is so much, like I would just root myself in like gratitude and appreciation of like, yeah, but like the reason all these people are getting behind you and cheering for you is because like they see something, and like you've put so much work and energy into wrestling for so long, and it's like don't do imposter syndrome on yourself. Like don't do that. Just this all happened for a reason. You're not here accidentally. And so that has really been like the big thing about the growth is like kind of remembering like where I started and how far I've come, and reminding myself like you've been working hard for this exact thing, and just being grateful for it.
Oh, I mean, you can just tell that gratitude comes off, that just joy. I think you're such a joyful character. You're also a bit of a badass too. You just had
Thank
a
you.
match for the women's world title with Mariah May. You did not walk away with the belt, but
I did not.
you did kick some ass, and you guys have great chemistry. That's something I noticed with you in general. You can put you in a hardcore match. You can put you with a Joshi, with another, bigger, strong contender. What do you think is that skill, that magic to being so moldable with other wrestlers?
I think there are, I guess, two key elements that help me in that realm. One, I have a very strong sense of self. Like I know who I am, and whatever situation I'm going into, I want to show who is Willow Nightingale. Like obviously you have to adapt depending on who your opponent is, but I don't completely abandon my own wrestling style or abandon my own personality just to kind of cater to somebody else. Um, and then I think there is a level of adaptability that comes into play just from like being a wrestling fan for so long and like watching so many different types of wrestling, is that I am familiar with different styles. I've seen different types of matches to kind of like give me an idea in my head of like how to approach every situation.
Is there like a match or a style that you haven't really gotten to play with yet? I mean, you've done the hardcore stuff, but I don't know if I've seen Willow like in a straight up ladder match. Like what are these kind of genres that you want to play with? A steel cage or
True. I have not done a ladder match. Um, I'm sure the day will come for that.
oh, I cannot
But
wait.
the the main thing that really comes to mind is, I was recently the CMLL World Women's Champ, and I have been over there before. I'm actually going to be going at the end of this coming week because we are doing Grand Prix de Amazonas, and I'm very excited about that. But even with my CMLL experience, I don't feel that I fully like tuned into like a lucha libre style of wrestling. There was a period of time where I was training over at Chikara in Philadelphia, which does have like a lot of lucha libre influence. And so I was kind of training in some of those things. Um, but I don't feel like I've really shown people the full Lucha Willow experience. So that is something that I could dabble in a bit more.
Oh, I cannot wait to see you bust a flip on these girls. They're going to be shook. I cannot wait. No, okay. I want to switch gears a little bit from wrestling to pop culture and entertainment. What is one of the last things you watched on streaming or you watched in the cinema?
So I know I don't go to the movies a lot. I know for a fact the last thing that I saw in the cinema was Iron Claw. And I went to go see it with my little sister, and
Oh
there was
my
definitely a
goodness.
part, yeah, I turned over to look at her, and she knows the story, so like she knew what was coming, but she was bawling and she was looking at me and looking at the screen, and I think there was like this moment of like the wheels turning in her head where she was like, I'm relating these experiences to my older sister and what she goes through, and I was like, no, no, I'm gonna be fine. It's okay, everything's cool. So that was the last thing that I saw in the theater. Streaming. What is the last thing I watched? Mm,
Because I don't know if you're one of those hotel people who love watching stuff when you're away. Because I always watch ghost hunting stuff. Any hotel I'm in, I'm
oh,
finding whatever cheesy ghost hunting is on and I'm watching it. I don't know why. It's just my ritual to
no,
unwind.
that is very. I do like watching ghost hunting stuff, and being that it's Halloween time, I have a little bat behind me. Uh, that feels very appropriate. But the last thing that I streamed, it was a true crime thing. It was called like Worst X Ever. I'm thinking if that's the name, or it's something along those lines. Basically, true crime. A woman thinks that her boyfriend's great and he's terrible, and I don't want to spoil anything if anyone is interested, but
It's
he,
always
I've actually, I think it opens with being like, he tried to kill me. So actually, there it is.
it's always you cheerful ones who like the weird true crime. It's always you guys. It's always like it's not the goth girls. They're not into it. It's
Balance
just like, well, that kind of goes
is
into my
balance.
next one real quick. We are in the spooky season. You are known for being a very cheerful, upbeat person, but do you have a bit of a dark side? Are you a horror fan? Do you like the spooky season?
I love spooky season. I would say I'm interested in horror. I will watch it, but I also know that it's such like people who are into horror are very into it and they're like, I've seen every this, I've seen every that. And that's cool. I'm like, you go, girl, you be into your interests. So, but I'm wary of being like, oh, I'm a horror person because I know that my knowledge does not have the same depth to them. But like my mom really loved more of like an eerie, scary movie growing up. She liked things with like ghosts. Speaking of ghost hunting, ghost adventures. She loved like things that were more like paranormal than like gore slasher kind of things. So that's what I grew up with. But I'm into it. I'm into
Okay, good.
it.
No, it's funny just because like I'm always curious with the horror fans. Like I talk to actors a lot, and I love when someone like I interviewed Halle Berry, and she was like, "No, I don't like horror. I've never watched it." And I'm like, "What do you mean, girl? Like what? Like these people who are just so known for genres that they're like, no, I don't like it." I'm like, "Good for you." It's like being like asking a wrestler like, "What's your favorite wrestling match?" And they're like, "It's a thing to watch," which I guess I'm
I
sure
mean,
happens.
there are some out there, yeah.
That's so funny. Which I guess maybe now will tie into my next and final question for you today. I would like to ask anyone who comes onto the show for a match and a movie. They don't have to go together, but give me one of your favorite matches, something that you've often gone to, even if it's a recent AEW match and a movie that you go to. Because I hate asking favorite movies, but I love asking the movie, what do you default on? Like, I will watch Scream every day of the week. It's just a default movie for me. I have no idea why.
It is a good one. I will say the match I will choose because again, it's all about the balance. And I think at this point people have realized I do have a little bit of bloodlust. I loved Hangman and Swerve in the Texas death match that they did last year. But the steel cage match that they did at the end of All Out was just like absolutely insane.
The blood drinking
And
at the death match was
yes,
iconic. Like just crazy people stuff. I loved it.
so I think that feels very like Halloweeny with like the violence and the how like visceral and primal it was, right? Like that in and of itself is kind of a horror movie. And then I think a thing that I do is like if I watch a scary movie and I'm like, oh my God, I have to watch something to cheer myself up before I go to bed. So then we could put something on the other end of that. It's a little campy. I know there's actually been a lot of discourse about it recently on my timeline or my feed is Rocky Horror Picture Show
I've seen that
because
I'm too old to get into Rocky Horror discourse. I'm like, is it
yeah,
problematic? Yes, it's supposed to be. I don't know. But yeah,
it
that
came out in 1975. Like
absolutely. No, that's so funny. I've seen the discourse as well. And I think that's honestly so fitting for you. You have this camp edge to you that I don't I love that you have and I love that you embrace. I was telling one of my friends, I was like, I don't know if me and Willow are gonna get along. And then I'm like, I don't know. She seems like she would love to talk about a gay with movies. So like I think this just seems like a good fit. And then you saying Rocky Horror, and I'm like, gonna tell my friend exactly that is who Willow is.
Yeah, I've probably seen that movie more than any other movie, like simply for the fact when I was in college, I went to go see like the Shadow Cast in Boston at least once a month, like at least. So I immediately, the first time I saw that, I was like, this is so cool. And it's just one of my all-time favorites for that reason.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. I loved getting to know about, your journey with wrestling in AEW. I think you again are truly a fan favorite, a scene stealer. Those conglomeration promos, I'm always like, but where's Willow? I mean,
I love the boys.
I love watching Mark Briscoe speak. I mean, but I'm always like, what's Willow doing back there? And Kyle,
Thank
what is
you.
Kyle doing? Can we talk about Kyle's face? Like, my goodness.
I It's honestly just to touch on the conglomeration a little bit. It's insane to me when I look around and I'm like, man, these guys are my buddies, and they're just like casually some of the best wrestlers in the world. They have like legacies deep, like within like independent wrestling for me. Like OC is someone I knew before AEW. Uh, and Mark, I knew like a little bit before AEW, but like getting to know Kyle and Mark and Ishii when he was here, I was like, this is so
Yeah.
cool for me. But yeah, I anytime I get to actually uh be alongside them is a great joy to me.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, trust me, when they were asking me who I would like to interview, I was like, just give me the conglomeration at this point. Like all of them in their own weird ways, it would be perfect. So again, thank you so much for joining me and speaking with me and getting into pop culture and getting to know a little bit more about what you love.